Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, July 31st. Also happens to be the last day of July this year. I don't know. It's kind of I guess, a popular expression, but the year is flying by. So let me say hello to our good friend, Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, did your mom ever tell you when you were growing up that life would go by faster after you turned 21?
Uh, yeah, a little bit like that. All the usual cliches. And actually, today, and right here where we are in New York and north of New York, it was supposed to be, and it is apparently in some areas, a very big weather day. They
Hmm.
were predicting thunderstorms and floods, and maybe possibly the end of the world. Maybe not, but and now we did get a prediction for a thunderstorm at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they got it right. We got a thunderstorm at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The problem with it was it lasted 3 seconds.
That's
It
right.
was one piece of thunder, boom, and that was it.
Well, you didn't use up a lot of your batteries then, Bill.
That's right. Oh yeah, we
You
spent
always have, you always
all
tell me that you got to have batteries ready.
Oh, in New York, absolutely. You have to have
Yeah.
spares, whenever there's a grim weather report or weather forecast, you can see all the nice residents of our town rushing to the local supermarkets to have batteries that ran out 3 days ago. You know,
Well, what I find interesting is how the different local channels compete with each other for the weather report, and it seems like that must be a pretty big business in the local news,
oh
the
yes,
weather report. By the way, that's something that my parents never understood when we first came to the United States, and that maybe has to do with the fact that Cuban weather was very predictable. You know, it was either hot, humid,
yeah,
or every once in a while there'd be a hurricane. So the idea of checking every day for the weather reports, that was something that my parents would always laugh at and say,
yeah.
look at these people. They check the weather every day. I mean, they don't need to check it. I can tell them what it's going to be. Well, my parents were a little bit confused because maybe that was true in Cuba. You could do that, but up here you do have different, snow and rain and everything else. So I don't know. I find I've always been fascinated by the weather reports and how much it consumes the local news. I understand from friends of mine in the local news that that's one of the big ticket items, the weather report.
Oh, absolutely. They make a fortune on those weather reports because, as you said, you get changing weather in the United States, and people tune in to see if the last weather report is still the current weather report. And the stations make a fortune on the commercials that they run, many of which are filled with as much dread as possible. You may die tonight, but if you have ever ready batteries, that will not happen to you. Yes,
Right.
it's a big, big money item.
Yes, it really is. And here too, but here it's more because of the excessive heat, tornadoes. Yeah, we do get those. And then our annual ice snowstorm that
Yes.
we get once every year. There's a huge one that literally shuts down the city. And so those are the three big ones. But the rest of the time, the weather around here it's pretty predictable. It's very hot
Mm,
in the summer,
yes.
and it's very hot in the summer, and that's about as you know. Global warming, I guess, takes over at the end of Memorial Day and stays with us pretty much till September, Bill.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here we've had a very hot summer in New York. Extremely hot summer, very unusual. And I don't know if there are any deep predictions for the fall, but I think that whatever heat we have in the fall will be matched easily by the political campaigns
Well,
because
yes,
because we're going to have 4 or 5 months coming up now of real political combat and maybe even some dangerous stuff.
yes, and then we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I have to begin by asking you your reaction to this whole controversy about this young woman who is obviously a very pretty young woman who looks real good in jeans. I'll say that much for her. And if I had a company and I was advertising jeans, I probably would call her up and say, hey, how would you like to be the face of my advertising? Well, it turns out that this very young woman is now, I guess, the latest chapter in white supremacy, Bill. I didn't know that Hitler was involved in genes.
Yes.
I didn't know that the Nazis, fuck, they may not. I don't know if they wore jeans back then, but this is about as crazy as it gets, Bill. And it looks to me like the Democrat Party is going out of its way to drive men away from the party, Bill.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think that they look, the Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned, is no more. I
Yeah.
mean, this is not a political party any longer. It's a joke. And they are desperately afraid of these left wing kooks who made their way into the party. Nobody resisted them. And now they are largely in control of certain parts of the Democratic Party. And, you know, what the Republicans are hoping for is that the people will discover quickly how rotten the Democratic Party really is and simply, in effect, put it out of business.
Bill, I would love to see that. I would
Yes.
love to see that because the idea that Minneapolis would elect a socialist, very similar to what could happen in New York.
Yes.
I mean, I always there was always the party of federal. What was this? The Labor Party
The
in
Democratic
Minnesota.
Farmer Labor
Yeah,
Democratic Farmer Labor Party.
but I think even they must be stunned
Well,
with.
I think so because that was the party of Hubert Humphrey, who
Yes,
was not crazy,
right.
and it was a very very important party at one time. It may still be in Minnesota. Minnesota is a crazy state. I mean, they seem to have weird political habits, most of which do not spread to the rest of the country. But I mean, when you mentioned the ad and the young lady, there is still that element left in it's really a 1960s element, and we thought that they had faded away, but they come back at election time, and the only thing that is going to prevent them from going anywhere is real Democrats inside the Democratic Party who have had enough of them.
But that's the part that drives me crazy. And let's move on to this election in New York, because you could have this fellow win the election, from
Oh,
what
he
I can
he
tell.
will. Yeah.
And so, I mean, what are you going to do with this guy there? I mean, people say, well, people are going to move out of New York. Well, they've already done that. I mean, a bunch of them have already done so.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know how much more taxes they can take with them, Bill. But
Well, it's not only taxes now, it goes way beyond taxes. It's getting into areas of the lifestyle of the city of New York, of danger in the streets and considerable danger, of people who cannot send their children to school safely.
mhm.
And when they open their front door, don't know who they're going to confront. And a government now run by the Democratic Party that doesn't care. It kind
Yeah.
of makes it plain that they don't care.
Well, they certainly act like it. I mean, but I think you're right in the sense that they've lost control of the party, and maybe what happened, Bill, is that 10 years ago, maybe it was even before that, but I kind of trace it to the arrival of Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Donald Trump shows up, and the Democratic Party says, "Okay, everybody who hates Trump, show up at the convention or show
Yes.
up at the party, and we'll let you in." Uh, and of course, they got some typical Democrats, but they got these wackos too.
Yes. Well,
And
we
how do
had
you
some.
how do
Go
you
ahead.
send them home? How do you send them home?
Well, that's an extremely interesting, and it's also a very important question because this has happened before in the Democratic Party. It happened in 1948, and we got a real politics from Eleanor Roosevelt and Harry Truman, who saw what was happening because the so-called progressives were coming back into the Democratic Party. There was no Franklin Roosevelt in their way, and their objective was to take over the party and turn it into a progressive a party. They were run by the former Vice President of the United States, Henry Wallace, who was basically a very fine man, but a man who made a number of political mistakes. They didn't get very far, and Eleanor Roosevelt and Harry Truman said to them, "So far and no further." In other
Right.
words, we will not allow you to take over this party. They finally got the message, and they started their own campaign for a third party. They did not get very far there either, and they were kind of out of the Democratic Party for quite a number of years, and they started to come back in the 1960s, allegedly to stop the Vietnam War. I never felt that was the actual reason, but there was nobody really to stop them.
Right. Well, no, I mean not in the at that time because
Yeah.
they infiltrated the party at that time too.
Yes, that's right.
The only difference is that there was I don't know a bigger level of sanity in these people. I mean, they were not as crazy as these people are today. I mean,
Yes.
it may have been anti-war, an anti-war movement, but it wasn't. I mean, I don't think
Well,
George McGovern is Mondami. In other words,
no,
he
no,
was a
not a chance. And
yeah,
that's what's so true today is they are so extreme. I mean,
yes,
to put the guy Mandame, let's be blunt about it. He is a communist. It
sure,
is not wrong to say that when it's actually true. He doesn't really deny it. He says that well, people misunderstand him, or this was many years ago. It's always many years ago. Well, many years
right,
ago, namely 2023, I did have some of those ideas, but I've grown and I've expanded my horizons. We want a big tent party. I
right,
just think they have a party of people who live in tents. That's what I think. But I don't think he's fooling anybody. I just think that the people who were voting for him, many of them, are voting for him in protest. It's like a protest vote, like a vote for something they really don't think is going to happen. Um, I am appalled by the fact that the Republican Party has not been able to come up with a candidate. In a city, or rather a state like New York, there is so much political talent. You have,
hmm
for example, Lee Zeldin, who almost became governor of New York the last time around. He is now a cabinet officer, but I'll bet that President Trump would get behind him if he wanted to run for mayor.
yeah. I'm sure he would, but I think I don't know, Bill. My theory is that nobody thought Mandami would get the nomination,
That's right. That's
so they
exactly right.
figured it's going to be Adams or Cuomo, and they could probably live with either one of those. I mean, nobody thought, at least in my mind, nobody thought that Mandami would win the nomination and defeat the Cuomo machine. But
Yes.
as people say, though, I mean, it was a very small turnout, and the two big, and I've seen this in some of the articles, Bill, that I've seen out of New York. Mandami does not have the black vote or the Hispanic vote.
That's correct.
So I don't
That's
know what
correct.
kind of coalition he's putting together. When I saw his celebration party the night of the election, that looks like a Southern Baptist
Yeah.
convention from the
Yes.
1950s. I
That's right.
mean, it was really hard to find anybody there who wasn't white.
That's right. That's right.
So,
It's a strange development, and as you say, I mean, he has not picked up the parts of the African American vote that are traditional in the Democratic Party. In fact, it's pretty obvious that most African Americans don't like him, even though
mhm.
he has claimed some African American heritage that occurred maybe I don't know, maybe southern Iowa in the 1700s. Yeah,
Yeah,
they found somebody, and but the fact of the matter is, if the Republican Party really opened up a powerful operation, they could defeat him. The people he's lost to, remember, are Democrats, or
right.
the old Democratic Party crowd of people who had a great deal of power at one time in the party and terrific name recognition. That's very important.
hmm
And the trouble is nobody liked them. That was that was the problem.
Well, Cuomo is a good example of that,
Yes,
probably,
of
right?
course.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good example of that. But I just think that this fellow Mandami, what he did is he took one of these ancestry tests,
Yeah.
and it showed on there like he's like less than 1% from Morocco. So
Mhm.
now all of a sudden he's African.
Yes, that's
So
right.
so he's less than 1% from I guess Cherokee. So now he's American Indian as well.
Yes. Oh,
It's
Native
like
American, Native
yeah, Native
American.
American.
Yes.
So it's like the Elizabeth Warren syndrome. Too
Oh,
many Democrats
exactly.
get into this, and And I agree with you. I don't understand. I mean, how he gets the Jewish vote is beyond me.
I don't believe it. I mean, that's what the latest poll showed. It may be a fake poll, though. You get these two where they're kind of rigged in advance, and where Joseph Goebbels could get the Jewish vote.
That's
I
right.
mean, they have it set up that way. We'll know pretty soon what the reality is, and people don't realize how close we are to the 2026 midterms.
Oh, sure.
They're going to be in a year.
But excuse me for a second, Bill. The election of mayor is not in 26, right?
No, it's not. It's this year.
This year. That's what I
Yes.
thought. Yeah. Yeah, we're even closer to that.
Oh, absolutely. But people are already looking
Right.
beyond that, and there's going to be a battle for 26 midterms, because those 26 midterms could be a good predictor of what we're going to have in 28, and could draw or draw people out who may want to be candidates.
Right. Well, I mean, 2026 would make or break the Trump presidency. I mean,
Yes, of course.
if he were to get a Democrat House, they're not going to be able to kill him because they have the Senate, but it would be an inconvenience for a couple of years of crazy investigations. Now, one of the things that is helping, talking about the election, one of the things that is helping here, Bill, is that in Texas and Florida and Ohio, they're in the process, I think they've already done it in Florida, actually, of redrawing the districts.
Yes.
And in terms of Texas, it's 5 new seats. But here's the interesting part, Bill. 4 of the 5 new seats are going to be in South Texas, and they're majority Hispanic districts, but they're leaning Republican.
Yes, and
Interesting
that's
situation.
fascinating. That's
It is.
absolutely
It is.
fascinating. No, I
Right.
think the Democrats are prepared to give up the Hispanic vote. I think they're seeing it float away, and they have nothing to replace it with.
Well, people like McDonough are going to drive away a lot of Hispanics. I'll say that
Yeah.
right now.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that fellow in Minneapolis, he's not getting any better. And I'm not sure about the mayor of LA either. I'm not sure how popular she is.
Well, that's a very interesting point that you bring
Yeah.
up, because when she was in the Congress,
Right.
she was a great fan of Fidel Castro, as you
She
know,
was. She
and
was.
she wanted to be the first. She didn't really want a congressional seat. She wanted to be the first United States ambassador to the new Cuba, because she loved Fidel so much. And she didn't get the chance to do that, so she had to settle for mayor of Los Angeles. She is really, I mean, she's bad news all over. No matter
Yeah.
what she does it badly. And the voting in California is now completely confused.
It is. It is completely. Now, back to New York for a second in Mandani. There was that terrible shooting there in New York. And of course, they're blaming the guns. That's all they know how to do.
Well, of course, yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to do? You blame the guns. Um, but what I find interesting is Madami apparently met with the press, right? And
Yes.
I didn't see the press conference, but did you have a chance to see it, or what
Yes.
was your reaction to it?
Well, it had really nothing to do with the issues. I mean, as you say, they blame the guns. They blame people in the community who don't come out to vote. They blamed everyone but the person who committed the crime. And
And now all of a sudden it's like Mr. AR-15 always
yes,
shows up. I mean, the AR-15, I didn't know, Bill, that AR-15s shot by themselves or shot off by themselves or woke up in the morning and created a plan to walk into a building and kill people.
this is well, you Silvio, you must get in line with the new technology.
Okay.
That's that's what that's what they mean by artificial intelligence.
Ah, I'm on the wrong side of history. Is that what you mean
Yeah,
with
yeah.
respect to the AR-15?
Well, the AR-15 is a pretty standard rifle, and what they do is they try to scare people with the name AR-15, because many people confuse it with the military rifle, the
Right.
AR-16, and they want to make it plain that they believe the gun was responsible, as you said.
Yeah. Well, what I find fascinating, I think one time I was watching a debate and somebody was again beating up on the poor AR-15, calling it an assault weapon. And the fellow who was on the other side, who was quite knowledgeable of guns, said, if that's an assault weapon, you're not going to win a lot of wars
No, it's
because that's just a semi-automatic rifle. That's all
that's
that
right.
it is.
It's no different than a hunting rifle, but
Yeah,
they to sell copies, they called it the AR-15. The AR-16 is the military version. I mean, you can actually hit something with it, and if you're certain people in the society, you can win a war with it, I guess. But they try to sell these things because they look like military rifles, and it makes the guy who buys one feel like he's tough.
right.
I'm really
Yeah,
tough.
that's like sending a Bill a Camaro, going out and buying a Chevrolet Camaro and showing up at the Indianapolis 500 and saying, "I want to run this. I want to race this car because look,
Yeah,
it looks just like a sports car."
of course it does.
And but that is this lack of the media, especially Bill, is so misinformed
Oh,
about guns. It's
they actually
pathetic.
don't. They don't know much. They
No,
don't know much. They think all history began 2 weeks ago.
that's that's right. That's exactly right. Now, one thing I have seen some video clips that Cuomo and Adams and the other fellow Silva, right, or Silva, whatever his name is,
Silva, Curtis
Silva,
Silva,
Silva
Curtis
has
Sliwa, Curtis
Sliwa,
Sliwa. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
right,
Yeah.
right, have really been beating up on Mandami about this shooting, saying, "Hey, you called for defunding the police," and he's now saying, "Well, no, I really didn't do that.
Yes.
All I said was that we could spend our money more wisely."
Yeah, well, no, he did it. He did it, and there's plenty of tape out there with
Good,
him saying the worst things, and that's what the Republicans are going to use against him, and it's going to be embarrassing. But he could be the protest candidate that we never realized was a protest candidate, because when he came into the race, people didn't think of him as a protest candidate. They thought of him as a hard left radical that we would associate with the 1960s, and now he's seen as anything he wants to be on a given day.
right. Well, Bill, I think the fellow from Minneapolis and Mandami must have gone to the same talent agency
Yes.
because they sound the same, they look the same, they have the same talking points. It's the same message. The reason that your city is poor is because the rich people have money,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. Something like
Yes.
that. And you keep wondering, whatever happened to this party. I think wasn't it President Kennedy who said you couldn't take care of the poor by beating up the rich or something like that he said.
Yes, you can take care of the poor by killing the rich, or something like that.
I'm paraphrasing it, but
Yes.
something like that. I guess that was a time when they were sane people. Uh, some Democrats had to pass a certain intelligence test, I guess, back then
Yeah.
to
Well,
run for.
maybe.
But man, it's really gone nutty. The last poll that I saw, one quick question. The last poll that I saw had almost like a dead heat between the Silva or whatever and Adams.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. I don't know how. See, I always have difficulty with polls and local races. I don't know because it's such a small sample.
Yes, it really, yeah. That and they sometimes the polls are reasonably accurate, but other times they can go way off course
Yeah,
because of things that just haven't been noticed in the general population. If once the pollsters notice them, they can sometimes account for them or change figures. But sometimes they these crazies come out of the blue.
yeah. But what you really miss in New York is something that we used to have at one time, and that's reporters who actually went down, walked around, talked to people, and something. Selena Zito does this as well as
Yes, she
anybody.
sure does. She's
She's great at.
one of the best reporters in the country.
Yeah, and you wish that you had reporters. What you have right now is a bunch of reporters sitting in front of a laptop, reporting on what this poll said and what that poll said.
Yes.
And I think it's you don't know really how much they don't know. Well, let me jump to another topic here, Bill. It looks like President Trump is making trade deals. Um, I guess today they decided to postpone or defer the one with Mexico for 30 or 90 days. I see a lot of things in the media that Canadians are not happy because they haven't done their deal yet. They're sort of blaming their prime minister for that. But look, if you do the European Union, if you do South Korea, if you do Japan, I guess Vietnam was the other one. That's a lot of countries right there that we do
Yes,
business with. So I mean,
absolutely.
he's obviously succeeding. And the European Union deal, what I like about it is they're buying energy from us.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that was a great triumph for the president. The Europeans can't be trusted to begin with, so
Hmm.
you come as close as you possibly can, and
Right.
I think he got something out of them. But I think the Europeans seem right now to be going their own way on some foreign policy issues that are very important to the United States. They're making fools of themselves because in the end the United States always wins in these debates within the alliance. But you get countries like Spain and Ireland and some of the others who really
Portugal.
Portugal, some of that, some parts of Italy, but not most, and they really do not want that closer relationship with the United States as long as the United States pays the bills.
Yeah, as long as we defend them, they're just fine with it.
Perfectly happy.
And but the problem that what I think President Trump has demonstrated to the world in his approach to these negotiations is how much more important it is for these countries to do business here
Yes.
than the other way around.
Well, they
Uh,
yes, and they don't understand it sometimes.
yeah, about some of our people don't understand it. You know, like I remember when all of these tariffs first came out. Look, I was a little confused, like everybody else. But once I realized that it's a lot more important for South Korea to sell cars here than vice versa.
Oh
It's a
yes.
lot
Hmm.
more important for Japan to sell cars here than vice versa. So they need to sell here. So Trump had basically the best market in the world, and he said, you know what? If you want to do business here, there's a cost to it. It's not going to be free anymore.
Hmm.
And it's amazing to me how quickly the countries fell in line, Bill.
They had to. They had to.
For sure.
We are still the well. Of course, the Iranians call us the big Satan or the great Satan, and uh, and economically we may be. I mean, one of the economic commentators was on a few days ago, and he said, if I had to face the United States economically, they'd be my great Satan also.
Right. That's right. But in this particular case, I think he did well. And I was listening to an economist who was going through the European Union deal, and he thought, Trump really had a great bargain. I mean, first of all, $600 billion of investments in the United States, all this energy that we're going to sell them. I guess it's liquid gas is what we're going to sell them.
Something like that. Yeah,
But I mean, that's going to be good for Pennsylvania. Don't they have liquid gas?
I
Uh,
think so.
yeah. So, I mean, it
They
seems
have
to
a
me he
lot of
got a
they have a lot of energy resources in Pennsylvania.
They sure do. They sure do. So you would think that that's going to help Trump politically in that state. That's
Yes.
an important state. But I think he's doing a good job with it. Of course, the latest economic figures bill came out, and they were pretty good. The GDP and inflation, and of course, you have to be cautious about these things. You can't just assume that this is the way it's going to be from now on. But I
Yes.
like the numbers, Bill.
I like the numbers so far. The thing with Trump that worries me is that what he needs, both in foreign policy and in domestic policy, is a solid, understandable victory where there's no question about it, where nobody has to watch television and listen to an economist describe what a tariff is. But I mean, a real victory would be, for example, knocking the Soviet Union, or not, well, not the Soviet Union anymore, but knocking Russia out of Ukraine,
Right.
getting them to either withdraw or get an agreement that is clearly favorable to us. Another one would be to knock the Hamas operators out of Gaza and weaken the Iranians even further. Iran is now a very weak country, but they are not acting like a weak country. They're acting like a bully, which weak people sometimes do to pretend that they're strong. But
Sure.
if it may take another raid on Iran, I believe we may very well see more military action against Iran in the next couple of months because the president has basically said, if you don't come to a reasonable term with us, there are other targets that we have. And he made that very clear.
Right. One thing, Bill, that could give President Trump a very popular victory would be the suggestion I've heard of sending out some checks,
Oh,
like
yes. Oh,
like
absolutely.
these tariffs. I mean, this money that we're collecting from tariffs.
Yes.
I mean, why not send every American $500 next month?
That is a very good idea, and it is an excellent idea because what makes an economic policy successful
Right.
is a check written, received by the receiver, and cashed, and
Right.
he's got the money in his hand. They don't like people don't like these theories, that
Right.
well, if we go this way, that by the next election you will be able to get a lower income tax rating, and you'll be able to see real money.
Right.
People can't follow that. They want to see the check in their hand.
Well, I tell you, I remember when we got that money back during COVID. I mean, we all got that check,
Yeah.
and I remember, I don't remember, somebody said, I don't like COVID, but I sure like the check,
Yeah.
or
Well, that's it. People were
something
getting
like
checks
that.
that they didn't actually need in many cases.
Right? Yeah,
In many
people
cases.
were getting checks, and they were paying off their debts, which is probably a smart thing.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned Israel, or you mentioned Iran and Gaza. Do you think that there's a rift between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel over Gaza? There, some people are writing that, and I don't know.
Yes.
I honestly don't know. I mean, how do you see it?
I think there's always a rift between the president of the United States and the prime minister of Israel. There's a kind of built-in friction between them because the Israelis are so tough. And the United States, in a way, needs Israel, but also they find that Netanyahu, in the end, seems to win many arguments because he is probably more knowledgeable about the situation. They probably have a better intelligence system than we do. I mean, their intelligence before the attack on Iran was incredible. It was just
Right,
unbelievable.
right,
And also he has a big constituency in the United States that goes well beyond the Jewish community that is very pro-Israel. It's smaller now than it was before, but I think many presidents have felt trapped and said, we're the superpower, and I can't get these guys to move.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's a very interesting situation.
And another thing too about this relationship, the Trump um, Bibi relationship, is that you've got two of the biggest alpha males in the history of the world.
Oh,
So, I mean,
these guys have
can you
egos.
imagine these two guys out? I mean, can you imagine these two guys in a conversation, Bill? I mean, it's got to be the definition of alpha male.
Oh, there's no question about that. These are two guys who believe that they are kings already. That they won't have to be crowned. It'll just be given to them.
Right. No, I mean they're very strong personalities,
Oh, yes.
but I think at the same time, if I was an Israeli, I would like the fact that Donald Trump is in the White House because the alternative,
Oh, it's terrible.
I would have been scared with Kamala Harris in the White House, Bill.
Well, I think if Kamala Harris got the 3 o'clock phone call and said that Tehran is attacking Tel Aviv, and she said, "Well, I don't care. I mean, I don't live in those towns."
Right. That's right. Yeah, call the UN. Tell them to
Oh,
have
the UN, yes.
have a Security Council meeting. Well, Bill, one last story that I want to cover because this is, I think, starting to get hot, and it's this whole thing about Russia, 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 which has ended up being a lie and a terrible thing. The one thing that bothered me most about this story from day one, and I remember living through it, was that I thought it did a tremendous amount of harm to the country.
Yes.
I remember the divisions, how hostile things were, how angry people were. I mean, when you have Americans who really believe that the president of the United States is a Russian agent, I mean, it gets pretty hot when that happens.
Oh, yes.
And now we're learning that the whole thing was a joke. It was never really true. And this is kind of the timeline that I see in these events. Nothing is official, but this is kind of what I've put together. Spring or early summer of 2016, Hillary Clinton is very worried about Comey looking at the things she was doing, the private server and all that other stuff, and she decides to have a plan B and prepare something against Trump. Comey comes through, doesn't do anything for her. So instead of shutting down that plan B, she keeps it going, but then they lose control of it. Because once
Yes.
it gets into the media or it gets into the hands of her staff or whatever, it's like it amazes me that she didn't at one point said, "Hey guys, cut this out. We're not going to go after him over this dossier or whatever it's called. Cut that out. We don't need to do that."
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it. I mean, there's a lot of details to fill in, I'm sure.
I think a lot of incompetence, built-in incompetence in the Democratic Party. They don't have a real political leader, that the kind they had in the past, like Franklin Roosevelt, who was a political leader as
Right,
well as president of the United States, and people, even like Jack Kennedy, who had his flaws and his weaknesses, but he knew politics as well as he knew government,
right.
and he was able to fend off the people in his party who didn't like him.
Well, in a way, I think that it is kind of ironic because Hillary Clinton apparently worked in the Senate staff that was investigating President Nixon back then,
Yes. Hmm.
and it
She,
is kind of
she
ironic.
she definitely was. Yes.
Yeah, that she kind of made the same mistake that President Nixon made. Had
Yes.
President Nixon in the beginning of 20 or whatever it was, 1973, when he learned that it was money from his campaign that actually was used in this, had President Nixon called in Haldeman or whatever and said, "You guys are crazy,
Yeah.
all right, and you're all fired. I don't want to hear any more about this," and then gone on TV and said, "Look, people in my name did this and they're gone,"
Yes.
something like that. I mean, I'm sure that some of the Nixon haters would not have been happy, but I think most Americans would have been, Bill,
I
and
think so.
Watergate would have never happened.
I think that's absolutely right. Watergate was an unintended, what is the term? An
Unintended
unintended
consequence.
foul, an
Yes,
unintended foul. It I mean, Nixon handled it so badly. You'd think he'd have never spent a day in politics. He should certainly know that it isn't the crime; it's the cover-up. Had he
right.
come out to the American people and say, as you said a minute ago, something was done in my name, I am outraged by it, and I feel that I must confess. I have to take the responsibility,
Right.
and people would have liked him for it.
They would have, and you have to understand the context too. He had just finished the Vietnam War. He was on top of the war. I mean, he was on top of the world
Yes,
in the spring of '73. No Vietnam War. He had that, détente or whatever with the Soviet Union. He was so
yes.
strong politically
Hmm.
that he could have done it then. But in the case of Hillary Clinton, as far as I can tell, and again, I don't want to be too harsh, but she may be in criminal jeopardy here, Bill.
Yes, this is what I'm hearing. That
Yeah,
of
me
course
too.
it would take a miracle politically for her to be prosecuted. No, nobody really wants to prosecute her because it will
Right,
get so dirty and so vicious that they'll be afraid of what's coming toward them.
right, and I also think there's another component to this, Bill, and that is that President Trump would have to pull the trigger.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I don't think he's. I mean, if you ever have to go after uh, Secretary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, he would have to approve it. And my gut feeling is that he would rather cut a deal and pardon her than
Yes,
because I think he would understand. Look, I just I think Trump is smart enough to know that once you figure out what happened, everybody knows what happened now. No more Russia story. Just do away with it. That's my feeling. But I don't think the country would benefit from a bunch of trials.
no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. And the only people who would benefit would be the television networks. It's
And
always a
we have a
good
lot
show.
of those.
Well,
We have a
yes,
lot of
it's like the O.J. Simpson trial.
yes.
The public buys into that sort of stuff. But I think you're right. I think after a little while, it would become almost sickening because you know in the end that they're going to make some kind of deal.
Well, and I think once you can, I mean, I think if I'm President Trump, I'm interested in number one, confirming to everybody that the whole thing was a lie. In other words, basically saying, I told you the truth. It was a lie from day one. And two, these people did it. And don't go too much further than that.
Yeah.
Now, Brennan might be a different story. Cuomo, that might be a different story. I hear from Professor Jonathan Turley that those two could be in real trouble. But
Yes.
again, it's all I hear. I don't
Yes.
know.
Well, those two, it's the old story. People do not like removing or coming down legally on people who were duly elected. And some of these guys are basically government, deep state employees.
Right.
And
Yeah,
they
they wanted to stop an election.
sure
Well,
did.
not
Yeah.
so much stop an election, but destroy the guy who got elected, which is even worse, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Bill, if it makes you feel, I don't know if any better, but if it's 103 degrees right now in North Texas.
Wow.
So it's 103. I'm looking at the little number here, the triple digits. It's 103. So you have rain or potential rain, and we have another. For some reason, these triple digit temperatures and the state of Texas seem to go together this time of the year.
Yes. Yes. And we're getting it here too. And it's, boy, 90 degrees in New York City it's a real 90 degrees,
Right.
and most people have nowhere to go for if you have to get to work and you have 3 blocks you have to walk from the train station to your job, you walk it, and it's so there's no outside air conditioning.
No. But the other thing you have there is humidity.
Oh yes,
I think that's the killer.
that's worse in August than
Right.
any other time.
And because we were in Houston this last weekend, and they have very similar temperatures. The temperature is not as high, but the humidity is horrible.
Yes.
So I mean, when you have 90 degrees with excessive humidity, it is really unbearable. And it's funny because I don't remember this, but my parents used to complain about humidity in Cuba. And when we came here, we used to talk about the weather in Cuba. And my mother would always say, oh, yes, it was very humid down in the island. But we had this wonderful wind, I guess because it was a long island, not too wide, that you would get this wind, from the North Atlantic and the Mediterranean. So there was always wind in the island that kept everybody fresh. This is before air conditioning was popular, of course.
Yes.
So my mother would always say, well, in Cuba, if it was hot and humid, you sit under a tree and there'd be some breeze.
Right. Right.
That's what she would always say. And that didn't work in Houston, Bill.
No, apparently not.
And the other thing too is the air conditioning. I mean, these machines running all day long. After a while, you want to shut them down and pray for winter.
Yes, yes. Well, I think we also ought to pray for a reasonable, peaceful future. But I don't think, frankly, we're going to get it. These next 5 months are going to be dramatic in the history of the Trump administration, and can make or break them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. There's a lot of balls in the air, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he's willing to put him in the air. Sometimes that shows leadership. But again, sometimes the balls crash and they don't come down the way you want them. But anyway, that just means that next week we can talk about all of this and all the other balls in the air, Bill.
Yeah. Okay, we will.
So you have a wonderful, thank you so much as always for joining us, Bill. And
my pleasure.
Enjoy the storms whenever they come.
I will. I'll just get out there and enjoy my 3 minutes.
Go march, put out, go out with a little sign saying, Al Gore warned us about this 25 years ago. He was warning us about this. And so go out there and give Al Gore some credit, Bill.
Sure.
All right. Have a good day, Bill.
Have a good day to you, Silvio, and looking forward to next time.
All right. We'll do it the next time. Our good friend, Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Always enjoy chatting with Bill and kind of catching up with what's going on in the world. And a lot of things are going on in the world, to say the least. Bill mentioned the election in New York, which is very important. And of course, the Middle East is always very important. But overall, I have to tell you that we're living in, I hate to use the cliche, but we're living in very interesting times, as they like to say. I'm not using I think that it's, may you live in very interesting times. I think that's the way it is. I don't care how it is. It is very interesting, the times that we are living right now. Everybody have a good day. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.